the way people see music or appreciate music has changed. Like it used to be like a big thing when an artist released something. And while that still can be true for many people today, because of both the saturated market, there have never been as many bands that are right now, and also social media, people don't appreciate music the same way as they used to. It's more seen as disposables,
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to my channel. Today I'm super excited because I'm here with the one and only Jens Bogren. Jens needs no introduction because he's a legendary metal producer. He's worked with bands such as Opeth, At the Gates, Dimmu Borgir, Between the Bird and Me, and a ton more. So I'm super excited to have him here. Hi Jens, how are you doing?
Hey Federico, I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me here. Well, I'm excited to share with you whatever it is that you want to know from me today.
Awesome, so let's do it. First of all, I'd like to ask if you've been up to something cool, but I know you have because you've just released your second IR pack with Bogren Digital. So do you want to tell us a bit about that? How is it different from the first pack, and how was the process of creating it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this summer I released my first product, so to speak, which was an IR pack for rhythm guitars, and I wanted to, or I already planned for a release with something, that could complement the rhythm pack, which is IRs for lead and clean sounds. Way too often I see that people use the same sort of setups for rhythm and lead guitars, and it makes it really hard to mix them, basically. So I brought up some gear, and over the last few months I've been sort of collecting IRs, stuff that I did within my productions and my mixes. And also I did like a proper session, trying to do as good lead sounds and clean sounds as I could. So yeah, it took way longer than I hoped, but now it is released. So that's cool. And yeah, it's been a little, I have this Bogren Digital thing running. It's been a little hard to keep up with everything because it's also been very busy in the studio and stuff. So, but and I guess for everyone in the music business, it has been a pretty chaotic year with well, not just in the music business, obviously.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, being busy means it's good right now. So do you want to tell us a bit about how these impulses were created? So did you capture the IRs from actual cabinets or from your records? Are they already processed? Are they mix ready?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to capture an IR from albums, but what I have done is that I have recreated some tones that I did in the past, and also a lot of new stuff, and yeah, I guess that's how I work. I create sounds that I like, and then I capture that IR through all the different settings. It could be a combination of microphones, it could be with EQ and stuff. The only thing that doesn't really work when you capture IRs is to the dynamic portion. You cannot capture with a compressor and stuff, but as close to mix ready as possible. I just recently mixed the song that you wrote. Thank you for that.
It's my pleasure.
That we're using as the promotional song for the IR pack, and it was super easy to mix. I mixed it with these IR packs, and yeah. So I hope that it will be like a fast track for those who buy the packs and help them with their mixes.
Something I realized is that using like the same setup or same cabinet for rhythm tones and leads on top of those rhythm tracks kind of never works, because then tracks have like the same sonic imprint, like blueprint. Is that the same for you? So do you think like using these IRs will make it easier for people to mix lead guitars on top of rhythm guitars?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you choose to use while mixing, I would definitely advise against using the same stuff for rhythm as leads and cleans, because I usually do that also with between the left and right rhythm guitar. I try to have something different. You know, you just get a wider space. It doesn't have to be two completely different setups, even though sometimes that's the case for me. But if there would just be some difference, you know, it could be a cabinet, it could be an amp, it could be a guitar, it could be like the mic blend from the same setup. If that's just a little different, you will get a wider, nicer result. And then I would definitely, well, the most important thing I would say is to have a different cab setup for any lead guitars. Then, you know, it's so much easier to mix it. It's just... yeah, it's hard to explain, you know, you need to sort of experience it, I suppose, but it really cuts through without any hassle if it's a different setup.
Got it. That makes sense. I actually have a couple of questions about what you just said. For example, do you ever like do you prefer to change the setup from left to right when talking about rhythm guitars, or do you like have different guitar players play those parts, or do you prefer having the same guitar player with different tone setups?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a dogma, and I don't do the same every time. Sometimes there are practical, you know, issues that would sort of define this. Let's say there is just one guitar player who knows these parts, for example. Sometimes it's really cool if you can go, you know, all the way and have two different players, two different setups. That would be my favorite way of doing things. But in real life, I might sometimes end up with sort of the exact same setup for both left and right. It also depends a little bit, you know, how it appears, how the sound is that you did, how the arrangements are in the songs, and etc. So, but yeah, it's always in my, you know, scope. I try to think about these things anyway.
Totally. Okay. So going back to the IR pack, can we talk a bit about our collaboration and the song we did together, the one I wrote and that you mixed? Because I'm actually curious, since you've developed the actual tones. What did you use and how did you approach the mix? I think that like our viewers also want to know some of the technical aspects that went into creating that demo song. So is there anything you want to share about how you mixed, like which impulses did you use, or maybe we can, if you don't remember, we can write them in the description. Anything that comes to your mind and you want to share.
Sure. I mean, the drums, if I should start with that a little bit, it was recorded by Krim from Septic Flesh, and he recorded them in his home studio, basically, or it's not even a studio. But yeah, for some reason, when he plays, it just sounds good. So even though it was a little bit subpar environment and everything, it's the way he plays, the way he hits, it just sort of works. So so what I did there was that I actually used some drum samples to enhance the sounds that were from an actual Krim session that we did with Septic Flesh. So that was pretty straightforward to mix those drums, and when it comes to the guitars, I wanted to challenge myself and use only digital stuff, you know. So this promo video that we were doing for the lead pack should be believable. Because usually I use real amps and real stuff, you know. I might do IRs, but in the end I always, you know, I prefer the real thing. But for this, I really wanted to use only digital stuff, and I ended up with this what the fuck's called, the Granifier or something from Neural DSP.
Yeah.
And then I choose 2 of my Rhythm Pack IRs that were actually new additions. I just did a new revised version of the pack with added like 5 more IRs.
Cool.
And I found 2 there, and I think it was one that's called Gates of Hell, and one other maybe called Viking. I guess you guys could figure out where those were from. And then for the lead stuff, we had the pleasure of having Marty Friedman play the lead, the solos on this song. And the thing with him, he has such a good tone just out of the guitar when he plays. So you could basically put whatever, and it would basically sound good. But for that, I used, I think I broke it out to like 5 different setups depending on the sections in the song, I wanted to sort of try to optimize these things throughout the song whenever he was playing high up or, soft parts or whatever. So, but most of it was actually this JST Jeff Loomis plugin.
Right.
Which is pretty incredible piece of software that I also was a part of helping out with some IRs for that release. But I ended up using some of the new IRs I just did here, trying out. I think there is one IR that I used that's called Water Shred.
I love that.
Subtle description.
Yeah.
And one other one I think I used was called Pull Me Undies, which is little funny name. So I think that was it. It's really sparse with post processing and just some little delay and reverb. So nothing too fancy really. It's a pretty straightforward mixing and instrumental track as well compared to vocals. Usually I spend like 30-40% of the sound or the time mixing I spend on vocals, so it was fairly smooth this time.
Perfect. Well, I mean that means that the tracks were good and the players were great.
Absolutely, and the song was fantastic. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, it was actually I was super happy about this collaboration because I've been watching videos from those guys since I was a teenager. So when this collaboration all fell into place, I was like, is this really happening? So I'm super happy it turned out great. Can we talk a bit about your studio projects? What have you been up to lately that you can share with us?
I can probably do that. I don't remember what's secret or not, so I might as well. Most recently here, I actually worked with Eamon and Marth again for some upcoming stuff they're doing in between albums. And without spilling too much beans, I guess it looks like I'm gonna be back with them for the next album as well. I've done 3 in the past, and then they've been elsewhere for like 3 albums, and looks like they're coming home, so to speak. And before that, I was working with At the Gates again, new album. And what else do we have? Some stuff there that I probably can't reveal just yet. It's been busy, and I'm working on a new Septic Flesh album. Like I said, we just recently recorded drums. Well, it's not so recently because of this Corona thing. Everything gets stretched out. I'm in production with Amorphous right now, for example, which is crazy because I'm not able to record it because they can't travel. So I have we have to do it remotely, and that's been a pain in the ass, to be honest.
Are you doing production remotely, like just writing, or also engineering?
Well, I don't engineer remotely, but I am producing it. So I'm basically, giving feedback on everything from the first, pre-production stuff, of course, but also like the setups and also the actual performances. So it's like, yeah, well, perhaps on this verse, Tommy, can you change your rhythm guitars this way? And it's just been super stressful going back and forth, and it's hard to focus, It's been, you get messages, oh, what about that chorus? Can we do this? It's like, yeah, well. So it's not ideal. I'm not going to do this again, but that's how it worked out this time. So yeah, and then there's some other stuff, like I've been working with this German band called Powerwolf, and that was also supposed to be a full production, but same thing, because of the virus they had to record back home, so I'm gonna take over and mix that album here pretty soon. So yeah, there's everything goes in the sign of Corona right now, but it's still busy, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, regarding the remote work thing, do you think it'll be like something people will get used to, like production and maybe even engineering remotely? I know that some people are doing the remote thing right now. I am also doing remote production with my bands, but still not remote engineering. I kind of hate the idea for now, but maybe I will change my mind. Do you think you will start doing that more and more? Well, you just said you don't like it, but do you think it will be necessary or not?
Not unless we get like a zombie apocalypse, then I think it won't be necessary. But I mean, to some extent, I've always been doing that. On some products, it's been a thing where I give feedback during the demo stage, but then I wouldn't be so involved during the actual recordings and then take over for the mixing. The thing here with Amorphous has been pretty extreme, and I never want to do that again, that's for sure. So got it. It's a lot of the magic in a production happens in the actual meeting with the musician, so I prefer it that way.
Yeah, makes sense. So besides your actual projects in the studio, if I remember correctly, last time we spoke, you were building a new studio, right?
That's true, yeah. This is my control room right here, or one out of... it's going to be 5 control rooms here, actually.
Oh, wow.
And it's been a pretty busy few years, and we're not there yet, but we have started working here now, and it's right now it's just feels pretty. It's been stressful for me, but
I understand.
I'm really happy that we are this far, and the new room sounds great here, and I've been able to try to gather 20 years of production and engineering experience into this facility. So yeah,
I bet you're excited to start getting bands in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, I prefer being alone, but I guess I have to. So.
All right. So I have a question about you've been doing this for quite a few years. How do you keep yourself interested in each and every project? Like, do you try to challenge yourself, and if so, how? Like with different techniques, different arrangement choices, or is just is like every record different in and out of itself with different people, so that also changes your process. So how do you keep yourself interested when doing like so many records? Yeah,
I mean, I guess one key element for me is to not do too much, even though I have a fairly good throughput here. I don't like to always be in production. Like if I do a full production, record and mix, I feel completely drained afterwards. So I always try to limit myself to let's say maximum 3 full productions a year, and the rest will be filled up with mixing and mastering. And yes, I mixed my first album in '96, and I've been doing this in Fascination Street full time for. This is actually 20 years anniversary this year.
Oh, wow!
So, and like you say, every project is different. You know, it's people that you work with, and I don't have like a strict formula for things. So I like. You know, to explore new stuff, and in a way it gets easier every year because you gather experience, and you don't have to try so much. You know, you can know that, okay, for this I think we should, you know, go with this setup here and that kind of thing. And then of course, you know, new stuff comes up and you try new things and that too. But one thing, I think this new Bogren Digital thing is pretty good for me because that way I can explore some new stuff. Like, you know, just by doing these IR packs, I've learned so much when you actually have to dig in, you know, and create a big quantity of high quality stuff. It has really, you know, made me rethink the way that I do guitar sounds, for example, and investigate some matters that I perhaps, you know, just had a hunch about before and that kind of thing. And I've been moving into using robotic microphone system, like the Dynamounts, for this very reason as well. You know, to be able to optimize and also recall settings and try to challenge myself and, you know, push the boundaries forward a little bit. So, and down the line here, me and my business partner Jacek, we are gonna do some plugins, and we have some really interesting artist collaborations going on in that regard. So that's sort of my, you know, a big thing for me right now with motivation. It feels really fun to be involved with that, and that way you can, you know, do the other stuff like mixing and mastering productions, and get a little bit of more of a fresh approach if you don't do it like all the time.
That's exciting that you have more stuff from Bogren Digital in store, so I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with. So is there like a maximum number of projects you accept to be able to stay focused on all the other ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I sort of always fail and always have too much to do. But yeah, no, when it comes to actual recording projects, I try to limit myself and only pick the ones that I feel, you know, feels exciting to do. Yeah.
I mean, that strikes a chord with me because I've been working for a few years and doing everything I could, but I just started realizing that, especially with production, like you said, it's important to be able to recharge and have new ideas. I feel like with mixing it's a bit different, where it's something you can do pretty much every day. But with production, for me, it's like you need some time off. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, it is. I mean, back in the day, I used to work a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But now I have 3 kids as well, so that helps. You know, that helps keeping a end at the day. You know, to actually go home and have weekends off and that kind of thing. So that also makes it harder with production because it's hard to combine family life with productions. So yeah.
Well, I mean, that means that if you have to stop, like, I don't know, at dinner time, then you have the time to recharge and get back with a fresh head on the following day. So it might also be a good thing for the project, in my opinion.
It is.
So my next question is about you working in metal and different genres as well, because I've listened to some podcast episodes where I think you mentioned you also mastered a record for Taylor Swift. Is that right?
Yeah, well, actually a movie. It was the I think it's called 1985. It was like a feature movie from Apple in Apple Music for a year or something. It was like the first thing that came up when you started your Apple TV thing. So it was a pretty huge thing, and it was an actual like concert movie kind of thing that I mastered in 5.1 and stereo. So
Okay.
yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff for Apple and Live Nation, like the Apple Music festivals, all the recordings from those festivals that became like products, like EPs from those sessions. They were mastered by myself and Tony Lindgren that works here with mastering.
Awesome.
And those jobs came through a connection that I have, a guy called Andy Scarth, who used to be a record producer and mixer, especially in the 80s, 90s. He did stuff like Tina Turner and Skunk Anansie and that kind of thing, Electric Boys. So he started to work for Live Nation and doing these recordings, you know, with all the big names out there, you know, everything from Elton John to Coldplay to Weeknd and Adele, all that kind of thing. And we got all that here for mastering for the Apple Music festivals and also different types of projects that had to do with Live Nation and Apple. So that's been, you know, really fun gig to do.
That's super interesting to me because, like, I wanted to ask you, do you enjoy working mainly with metal bands, or would you like to also explore other genres like you've already mentioned? And do you think it's possible or even advisable for a producer like to niche down to only one genre and kind of focus on that and be the best he can be at that? Or do you think it's also possible to be good at multiple things and also develop a career that spans multiple genres, which is something I am trying to do? It's like, if a song is good and the production is great, I want to work on it, and that's what I feel like. But I know lots of people are like, metal is my genre, I want to do that, and I don't care about anything else. So what do you think is the best like approach for an up-and-coming engineer or mixer, and what is your personal idea or subjective point of view on the matter?
Yeah, I mean, first and for all, I think that you need to follow, you know, your heart in these matters, because it's so personal, you know, what you enjoy doing. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that it's probably going to pan out one way or another. Because for me, it did. When I started out, I was not into metal specifically at all. I was doing all kinds of things. And this was a little different back in the day, because then you could sort of have a studio and people would come to you to record, like local bands and stuff. That's not so common anymore, because that sort of basic technology is so accessible these days. So there's no space anymore for a studio, a local studio in most places, or at least not as it used to be. So for me, I guess I was lucky in that regard, that I got to work with a few projects that got recognized internationally, and that sort of led me into the heavier path. And once I started to get jobs there, I just went, you know, so busy. And then the whole music business also collapsed with Napster and that, you know, file sharing and stuff. So all the budgets were completely destroyed. So all the sort of local projects and various genres had been, you know, something that I worked with, those jobs disappeared anyway. So for me, it sort of became natural, and I was, you know, a little bit sad about that for a while. Like, you know, I would like to do post-punk or something like that. But at the end of the day, I just, you know, appreciate that things have gone well for me, and that I've been embraced by the heavier genre, so to speak. So I don't complain, and I think that I do a lot of different stuff within the heavier genres, and yeah, then I do also like mastering job with these other styles of music. So for me, I think it's sort of too late, or whatever happens. We'll see. But I don't actively pursue working with other genres. So for me, I guess it works out trying to be sort of top level within one genre. But if I would let's say that I would ever get time to do some sort of solo album, I guess it wouldn't be necessarily within a metal genre, or at least not solely so. But it works out differently for different people, this thing. But it is hard to be best at everything, and the climate today, when there's so many talented people, producing music at basically no cost, or just because they think it's fun or whatever. I think it's hard to try to make a living out of working with all kinds of genres, at least from my experience. But yeah.
You mentioned if you were doing a solo album, it wouldn't be metal. What would be like the, I don't know, 5 influences, like 5 bands or records that will influence your solo album?
I don't know, man. I said that I wouldn't be only metal, at least.
Okay,
but
fair.
I mean, the instrument that is closest to me, that I rarely play these days, but it's been guitars. I started out playing guitar and stuff, and I grew up with these kind of guitar bands, like Wishbone Ash and guitar heroes like David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, and I used to listen to a lot of proggy stuff like Camel stuff back in the day. And I also had my Dream Theater period, so it would probably be a little guitar oriented, I suppose. And but musically speaking, I guess I mentioned post-punk before. I have a strong heart for bands like Sisters of Mercy, The Cure, and The Mission, for example, that played a huge part of my youth. And also like Paradise Lost was also a big inspiration for me when I was younger. I got to produce 2 albums with them, and a live DVD at some point in my career, and that was a pretty weird experience, being a big fan when I was younger.
That must be so cool. So how is it like working and actually get to produce a record from a band that was one of your favorite bands? How does it feel like?
Yeah, that was a little scary. Today it would probably be a little easier because that was 10 years ago or something, and I was still fairly young, much younger than these old farts. And I remember I was renting this van to go up to the airport and to pick them up, them and their gear. And it was pretty quiet in the van, after I picked them up. And I was pretty nervous. Here I was, driving a bunch of my own personal heroes, and also they're from the northern England and has, a lot of accent, a lot of dialect. So it's pretty hard to understand. And I was, trying to rock out with my Swinglish, and I was supposed to produce their album, and it was a little scary. But first day or 2, and then things sort of felt pretty natural. But it was amazing, having Greg McIntosh playing his leads, left hand player in my studio. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that must have been great. So did you do anything like to fight the you must have been pretty anxious about it. Maybe, I don't know, were you like scared of ruining one of your old favorite bands, or were you like, let's do it, I'm gonna kill it?
Yeah, no, I was not scared to begin with. I was a little bit, struck by the severity of the situation once I picked them up. But no, it's fine. I mean, once you get in the studio, it's your home ground. So it's and they're also, band that's been around for long, and those bands are usually pretty easy in that regard because they're so used to everything, you know. They're used to having a producer, you know, telling them what to do and all that kind of thing. So usually it's more drama if you work with a younger band, you know, up and coming. Everyone is so anxious about their own instrument and that kind of thing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Before moving to like some of my viewers' questions, there's another thing I wanted to ask you. What would you suggest to an up-and-coming producer or mixing engineer? Like if someone told you, I'm starting to produce and mix bands, what do you think will be the best pieces of advice you could give him to develop his career and his taste, his style?
The best advice I could give is do something else instead.
Oh.
Wow. That's the advice I would give my children, that's for sure. Now, that's a good question. The problem is that it's a little different these days, you know. In a way, it's very easy these days because everyone could get, you know, a decent computer, some software, and has, you know, great tools at hand. On the other hand, there's so much available. Like if you start looking, you know, which tools am I gonna get, which plugins am I gonna get, there's just so much stuff, you know. And if you have no experience, it's really hard knowing how to sort all this information. When I started out, there was almost, you know, no internet and it was simply very limited information. I had to try to find, you know, some books about production, and I had this mentor that helped me a lot, and I had to learn by doing all the time. So I think it's harder these days, the way that you just flooded with potential information and how to sort that. I see discussions sometimes in these like Facebook groups and stuff with people with too little experience are discussing too advanced things, you know, when they should start down here before even trying to think that this subjects here would be an issue for them. Is there an advice in there? I don't know. Get a mentor. I think that's really important. Like, I think it's almost impossible today to try to sort everything yourselves. At the same time, there are great instructional courses and stuff. So perhaps if you take part of that, someone else try to break things down for you, so you have a path, you know, that you could lead. Then it works fine. But otherwise, the way things always worked is that you started as an intern somewhere and you know, gathered the necessary knowledge and built yourself upwards. That would be still a very good way of doing things, I think. Or try to jump on some sort of course or university or whatever. But it's really hard. I mean, doing this, to go from just, you know, think this is the coolest thing in the world to do, to actually make a living out of it, and how that thing, the fact that you need to make a living out of it, how that changed the perception on the whole thing. It's similar to like musicians that want to become a music teacher because then they can do what they love. And then 3 years later, they are so depressed and they lost all joy to music. It could be a little bit the same in this area. I think people should ask themselves: is this really what they, you know, enjoy doing? Because enjoying it and having it as a living is not necessarily the same thing. I can feel that sometimes, you know. If I would go back in time, looking back, I might have been doing something else instead, you know. There's so many possibilities out there, especially these days. Like, I mean, I could, I don't know, deliver mail. No, I'm kidding. There's so much interesting stuff going on. So I think that it's such a saturated business, and it feels like it's getting harder and harder, and people should really be prepared for that, you know. And it's not a huge loss if you end up not being able to do it like for a living or full time. It could still be fantastic, you know, doing that sometimes and then have a day job on the side or something, because then you can still feel the passion and you know, have it as a hobby, because that has been one of my major sorrows, I would say, you know, because music used to be my passion. I was a record collector, you know. I learned lyrics, and I knew all the members in the various bands that I liked. But since I start doing this full time, it's just, I haven't, you know, felt that anymore. It's like I lost my passion for music as a listener once I went into this professionally. And now I can listen to albums professionally in a way. And of course, sometimes I could also enjoy albums, especially if I had some time off. But it has been a little problematic for me to maintain the actual passion for music as a listener, and also working so much and doing it for a living. So yeah, it's a word of cautious, I suppose. Word of caution.
Okay. It's actually super interesting to hear you talk about this stuff, because when you hear people that are talking about their jobs, mainly in this field, they're always like super hyped, like everything's great, it's super cool, which it is, but as you said, it can also become tiring at times. And I feel what you're saying, because I've definitely done worked on songs which I was not in love with, because I had to, you know, pay my bills. So of course there will be projects that you love and you can do your best on it, and others, even if you do your best on it, it will still feel like a day job. So yeah, I understand. But you know, I think the everything you said is a very cool perspective that people should consider. In addition to the shiny things they can see, like the gold records, the huge numbers, sales, streaming numbers, cool bands, great songs, and whatnot. So thanks for the insight on this as well.
Yeah, and I might also add that another thing that I felt over the last 10 years is that the way people see music or appreciate music, has changed. Like it used to be like a big thing when an artist released something, and while that still can be true for many people today, because of both the saturated market, you know, there have never been as many bands that are right now, and also social media, people don't appreciate music the same way as they used to. It's more seen as disposables, you know. It's like someone releases a new song and then someone listens to it, you know, that has, you know, that calls themselves a fan, or, you know, at least being interested in that band. They listen 20 seconds and then they start writing comments like, yeah, it's all right, or whatever. It's like, it's not, it doesn't see the same appreciation as it used to be, you know. I don't think people see it as art the way people used to do. So that saddens me a little bit. How this whole music business has changed, you know. And I see the Spotify founder talking about how an artist needs to move away from albums, you know, to release a few songs here and there, because that's the only way to keep the crowds happy. And that's what he sees in the data, you know, for Spotify. And it just goes in the same line that it changes. Like, it's like one of the wonders of the world is going down, like Steven Wilson once wrote in another matter a little bit, but still. So yeah.
Do you think there is something that artists as well as producers can do about it, or is it just something that's that's like this now because of how the world has been moving, so there's no going back at all? Or can we do something about it?
Unfortunately, I think that perception is here to stay. I guess what I try to do, I try to not read any comments about anything that I'm involved in, because I know that it's just going to be a pretty skewed perception. And for those who actually write the music, I guess my advice to them is not to read comments either, or not care too much, because there will always be those who are actual fans and music lovers. But I hope that the whole social media gets abandoned by humanity at some point, but I don't think that will happen anytime soon.
Thanks for your answers to my questions. Can we move to my viewers' questions? I have a few of them.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind. So Jack is asking, "Hi Jens, what are your current favorite cabinets for guitar recording and why?"
Hello, Jack.
I think Jack can have your favorite guitar cabs from now on.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I finally made a documentation for these IR packs we did. So in the documentations, you can see what kind of cabinets I've been rocking out for the last few years. But well, I think that even though it's super boring to say it now, because it's talked about a lot, I do think that the oversized rectifier Mesa cabinet 4x12 is a fantastic cabinet when it comes to rhythm guitars. I have been using it for many years, and it feels like more and more people are catching up on how good it is. Most other cabinets that I tried against just doesn't deliver that same awesomeness and sturdy low end. Even like replicas of that cabinet doesn't do the same thing for whatever reason. I know also that Celestion, they changed their manufacturing, so now it's not UK made anymore. These vintage 30 elements that are rocking out in that cabinet are now made in some other country, and it's not the same anymore. But that's a fantastic cabinet for rhythm guitars. When it comes to lead, there's so many good stuff there that I could recommend. I have possibly my favorite is a vintage Marshall 1960 with greenbacks, 25 watts. That is sounding really smooth and nice, and cuts through nicely. Perhaps if I would choose two, that would be it. I usually do 4x12s also for cleans and stuff. I think that's somehow it works out well for me.
Cool. By the way, have you compared different different cabinets from the same models, like Mesa oversized? Because there's a lot of variability in there. So have you picked the exact cabinets that you like the most and you've kept them? Or did you just buy one a few years ago and keep using it?
Yeah, that is a good question. And there are variations to them, of course. The oversized that I have, I've had for many years, and I have not made a proper scientific shootout with that one. But I've been thinking that for some of the products we're doing down the line here, I'm gonna have to try to do that and actually get a bunch of them and see if I was just lucky with this one, or if there's something even better out there that I could get my hands on.
Based on your records, I think the ones you have sounds fine, but you can also, try new ones. Maybe there will be different tones that you can achieve with different cabinets.
Yeah.
So next question, Johan is asking, Jens, what does your family and loved ones think about the music you work with?
Hello, Johan. Well, my 4-year-old son, he's a big fan, and he growls a little bit at home at times, and he always want to listen to daddy's music. Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, my wife, she when I met her, actually the taste of music was pretty important to me back then. Like, you know, a girlfriend would not tick the box unless she liked some stuff, and more importantly, disliked some stuff, actually. But I can't say that I really care these days. And she used to be like, you know, pretty heavy girl with the hardcore kind of preferences. These days, you know, we just want silence. We have 3 screaming kids. So yeah, my mother, she's a very, very religious woman, actually, and I guess sometimes she, yeah, she's not super impressed perhaps by some of the stuff that I work with. Not that they really, you know, ever find out or care.
When you started, were your parents cool with the kind of music you worked on?
I mean, like I said, when I started out, I wasn't really doing metal stuff.
Oh, right.
So I think the first sort of, you know, dark or little satanic thing that I worked on was probably Bloodbath, perhaps.
Okay.
I don't know, 2004 or whatever it was. And I mean, by that time, it's not like my parents knew what I was doing or anything. But yeah, there are, you know, I'm from a religious home, so I guess they wouldn't have been super impressed. But you know, it's never been an issue. Sweden is pretty secular country, so.
Okay, third question. What does Jens think about linear phase EQs? If he uses one, in which situation does he use it?
Yeah, I do use linear phase EQs and also some dynamic processing like multiband stuff from time to time. And it's usually during mastering. If I don't want to change the balance of instruments, then linear phase could be a good thing. And for multi-band compression, if I would ever use that on a master, which is not all the time, far from it, I would choose a linear phase one, not to alter or create like phase issues at the cross points. So I do use it, but it's not like I find that linear phase EQs are magic. They also have drawbacks that you might be aware of if you ask such a question. That you get like pre-ringing, and you can get sort of a glassy sound, especially if you use it in the high end. So yeah, I would. It would require something from your listening setup and experience to use linear phase stuff, in my opinion. But yes, I do use them.
Okay, and one last question is, does Jens use clipping in mastering? And if so, which hardware, AD converter or plugin is he using?
Yes, I do, absolutely. Clipping is, in my opinion, a far more transparent way of reaching volume on a mix compared to limiting. Sometimes I see people argument like, yeah, I would never clip a mix, you destroy the mix. But the thing is, if you limit a mix, you destroy the mix. If you clip, I would say that it, you know, destroys the mix far less, depending on the situation and how far you push it, of course. I mean, with the new standards like LUFS standards and Spotify and YouTube actually normalize around the same reference. I hope that this volume war thing is going away, and then certainly I will definitely clip less in my mixes, at least to some extent. Some of this, like, you know, mastering clipping or perhaps limiting is sort of a part of a modern sound. I mean, the last dB or two is destroying things, but up to that point it can actually be pretty musical, you know, bring out nuances and some harmonics that can be favorable. The same way I use clipping on some other things in my mixes, like on a certain part of the drums, for example, to, you know, create overtones that just makes them sit better in the mix. When I master and thus clip, I have an analog chain, so I do use an analog converter, analog to digital converter, which the best one that I have been using is the Forcell MADA, it's called. It's very, very good. I'll also be using the Lavery Gold. It's also a very good one. And I have like the Burl B2, which is with analog transformers, also pretty cool sometimes. And then I have Lynx Aurora, the new N version. It's also sounding very, very good. And since I got that one, I've been a little less picky with my ADDA converters, because the level is so high to begin with. So. But those work all very fine for clipping, and then inside the box, coming back into the system, I might do some additional limiting post clipping actually sometimes. So it's like a gain staging process where I might do a little bit of limiting with pretty long attack time before the DA, and then I hit my analog stage. I might do some sort of transformer or tube thing outside of the box, and then I hit the AD converter relatively loud, and then I have most of my volume already, and making sure that my EQ is right for the master, because if it's like too bass heavy or something, then it will just be a disaster. So it will need to be frequency balanced before I do that process. And I don't EQ post AD clipping normally. And then to gain that last like half a dB if necessary, then I would use some sort of brick wall limiter, like I said, post clipping. Then it won't hurt the snare drum as much. And this depends also on the genre you're working on. If I would be working on like classical music or something, I wouldn't do clipping at all. Then I would do something like an L2 would be perfect for that. But when it comes to like dense rock and metal music, if I want to make sure that my especially snare but also kick sits in the mix as they are supposed to, then I cannot reach that with a brick wall limiter. And I think the digital clippers that I've tried, I've never been able to reach the same sort of transparency with volume. But it all depends. Like if I start doing all my masters not for CD but for the digital domain, then soon enough I could move away from AD clipping, I suppose, unless I still think it sounds better. We'll see.
Okay, so you kind of just answered my follow-up question, which will be, since you described your mastering like analog chain, which is super cool, did you ever find something that could be more budget-friendly in the box? But you already answered and told me you wouldn't really use software clippers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, on that, to be fair, I've never... the trials I've been doing there haven't been like super scientific, since I never had to do it. But at a few occasions we have been trying out. Something new comes along. It's like, okay, perhaps now. Perhaps they made it this time, and then I try it. It's like, yeah, but not really. So but if I would be forced to doing that, then I would suppose I would have to find a way of it working, and then probably be doing my CD masters a little quieter than I am doing now.
Totally, that makes sense. So what's next for Jens and for Bogren Digital? What do you have in store for the next few months? What are you focusing on?
Yeah, for the studio business here, I'm gonna continue working on the amorphous one. Gonna move into live production soon, I hope, not only remote production. And then I'm finishing up this Powerwolf album that I talked about in the beginning of the interview. And then there's some other stuff coming up, like I'm finishing up the Septic Flesh album, and I'm doing some stuff with Enslaved, and there's this Japanese band called Anthem that I've been working with before. It's pretty big over there. And then there is some other stuff, like I'm not sure what I can mention, because then we come into the fall, and I don't want to jeopardize things. But there are things in store, and with Bogren Digital, I can tell you that we are gonna have some really cool releases down the line here with some plugins and various artist collaborations. So yeah,
awesome. We'll be waiting to see what you guys come up with. So I know you're super busy, so I don't want to take up more of your time, and I want to thank you for jumping on this call with me and for answering my questions and my viewer question. Thank you so much, Jens. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, Federico, and thanks again for your great work on this promotion song that I'm gonna use a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool.
My pleasure. See you soon.
Take care, man. See you. Bye.
Bye.